Call the meeting of March 18, 2026, Board of Commissioners to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome all. I'd like to remind everybody that this meeting is a public meeting and that it is, you can watch it virtually and will be recorded and posted on the Umatilla County website. Also, if anyone's here to talk on a subject that is not on the agenda today, we will have time for that here shortly, and we would like you to hold those comments to 3 minutes. So, with that said, any awards, recognitions, or correspondence? Commissioner Timmons? No. Commissioner Schaefer?
None for me.
None from me. Approval of the Board of Commissioners meeting from March 4th and approval for the work session of March 5th.
I'd move to approve the minutes of March 4th and March 5th, 2026.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Move my copy before I spill it. Any additions to the agenda?
I think it got on there.
It is on there. Okay, perfect. Public input and recognition of visitors. Is there any public input on any subject that isn't on the agenda today? Seeing none, we'll move on and start the meeting with our business items. The first is a gate permit application.
This matters before the board. Received an application from owners on the North Fork, the McKay Creek Road, requesting to put a gate on the county road. It was signed by 2 of the property owners. The third affected property owner is the Confederate Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation that owns property further up the road off of a private easement. They did not sign the application. However, they did confirm that they're not in opposition of the gate application. And so notice that this was provided to all of the property owners as well as the tribe, and now's the time for any consideration on the application.
Wishes?
I just have a quick question. Are the tribes in favor, or are they against it, or are they just
They're
neutral?
not in opposition.
They're not in opposition. Okay.
But they're not going to sign it.
They did not sign the actual application, but they're not in opposition to the gate.
Do you know why they wouldn't sign it?
They want to make sure that they had access to the property. They do have an easement for certain purposes through the private area, not on the county road. And they want that insurance, and I think they got that.
So they will have access.
They will have access. They have an easement that requires access.
Okay.
I move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is curbside recycling rate.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Bob Walder, Community Development Director, and also staff to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. So the item before you is a request to establish a curbside recycling rate. As you have been aware, Umatilla County has been working with the franchises and DEQ as the state rolls out the Oregon's Recycling Modernization Act. So beginning July 1st, 2026, cities with a population of over 4,000 people are required to provide curbside recycling service for residents inside the city limits as well as the urban growth areas. Waste Connections, doing business as Sanitary Disposal, and Pendleton Sanitary Service, also having solid waste franchises in Umatilla County, proposed to establish a rate for new curbside recycling services within the respective franchise service areas. If approved, effective July 1st, 2026, and would apply to all customers within the franchise service area, regardless of whether or not the customer participates in curbside recycling. So the following rates were proposed and recommended for approval by the Solid Waste Advisory Committee at their meeting on February 23rd. Both franchises are requesting to set an $8 per month for every other week residential service curbside recycling service for residential customers, and $24 per month for every other week multi-family curbside recycling service. And that multi-family at this time would just be applicable to sanitary disposal. So this item is before you for discussion. I believe some of the franchises are here. If you have questions, they may be able to answer those for you.
Thanks, Bob.
Any questions for staff?
Yep. Any questions?
I guess my questions that I keep getting, and I think we've heard this in a smaller setting, but will there be training? Because a lot of people, myself included, don't understand which is garbage, which is recyclable, and
So part of the Recycling Modernization Act, as well as the Opportunity to Recycle program through Department of Environmental Quality, actually requires public awareness of recycling opportunities. So the counties, the cities, franchises work together to provide information about how to recycle. For example, there'll be a lot of information coming out to members to community members on the proper way to recycle. For example, containers need to be clean and dry and empty, things like that for mixed curbside recycling. So that information, as the program begins to roll out, you'll probably see more public awareness about how to go about recycling.
and how big are the recycle cans?
I cannot answer that. I don't know that number off the top of my head. Perhaps one of our franchises. 96 gallons.
Is that the same size as the standard garbage can?
It's the size of the bigger garbage cans,
Okay.
not the tiny one, regular.
Yeah, that size? Okay.
Commissioner Timmons?
I do have a couple of questions. So these fees, what do these fees do?
I think that might be best if the franchises wanted to come up and, Kevin, Denise, do you mind coming up?
Hello. So these cover the
Sorry, Kevin.
No, it's all right.
Same thing, you get name and address.
Kevin Miracle, worked for Sanitary Disposal 811.
Thank you. No, yes, I do.
Continue on.
So this
Oh, wait, you gotta say your full address.
81144 North Highway 395, Hermiston, Oregon 97838.
Thank you.
I have a PO box too, but we're good. Okay. So this pays for driver's wages. It pays for the maintenance on the truck and stuff like that. So the price, if we didn't have the upfront capital, the price would be around $20 to $22 a month versus at $8. But with the upfront capital, it pays for the trucks, carts, the reduction in contamination, and the continued education piece. So-
Okay. So it's like facilities, transportation, that type of thing, right? Okay. So I did a little research on this, so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. So, according to this Curbside Recycling Act, or this Oregon, the new law, Recycling Modernization Act, it says companies that sell packaging, paper products, and food serviceware must pay fees to a producer responsibility organization, specifically the Circular Action Alliance. and these funds are used, these fee funds improvements in local recycling facilities, new equipment, and transportation to ensure materials are recycled responsibly. So if the producer's paying that, and then you're charging also the consumer, right? Does the producer funding come to you?
So it does for the trucks and the initial startup of the program is the funding we're getting. So this is for the transportation from like sanitary disposal to the Portland area. That's all paid for. We don't pay for that. The compactor tubes that we're actually going to use to push the material into, and the transportation also, and our facility upgrades that we need. You know, with the wind blowing out here, we need to cover for this lighter material. So they pay for all that upfront cost, and so we don't pay for it, and that's why you see the reduction in the actual monthly rate versus what it would be.
So this producer funding, that's a one-shot deal, and then that's it? Or will that
Yes.
continue?
Yeah. It's just the upfront
I
money.
was hoping to help.
Yeah,
Denise
no,
from
yeah.
Pendleton Sanitary Service, 5500 Northwest Reed Road. The funds do, it's a one-time upfront truck fee. They'll pay for the carts. But after that, continued maintenance on carts, purchase of carts will be on us. So any repairs to the trucks will be on us. New trucks will be on us. Employee hours to bail the commingled, which we don't do now, is on us. So any employee hours, any new employees to run the commingled routes is all on us.
Okay, so these producer fees are just a one-shot deal and then they're
It
done?
is. The only thing that they will pay for is the freight to get it to Pioneer, which is in Clackamas, and that's the only thing we get reimbursed for.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions and.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank you. And I think everybody, I have two basic questions, and hopefully we can amend this because I'm not in support of this the way it is. One is I'm not in support of people outside of the urban growth boundaries being serviced and charged this fee for a couple of reasons. And one is the inability and for the safety reasons and whatnot that Kevin's explained to us before is we now have folks bringing their cans out to the main roads. Now this would make them have to move 2 cans out to the main roads. So I'm not in favor at all of this being included in the unincorporated areas.
There are also people within the UGB that have to do the same thing.
That's fine. The UGBs, I have no issues with that. But in the unincorporated areas, I think that's something that we have control over. So, and then second is I'm having a hard time understanding the definition of multifamily curbside pickup. This is not clear to me. So if I have a duplex, is it $24 for each side?
No, it's 3 units or more. So apartment complexes and multifamily, so more than 3 units.
And they get a bigger container. At least it's sanitary, they do.
Okay, so again, then we need to clean that language up. But so if I have a 4-plex and each one of those people pay for their own utilities, how does that work?
If they're paying for their own utilities, each person would get their own cart. If the landlord is paying for that, they would get one big one.
So if they're each paying their own cart, are they paying the,
$24 or are they paying $8?
They would pay $8.
$8.
That's not what this says.
That would only be for landlords paying for the multifamily service.
Yeah, and that's if they decide to go that direction, if they want to do the bigger cart or if they just want to have individual carts.
Yeah, I think we need to clean that language up. whatever suggestion you have on that. Because the way it reads is pretty clear. It's anything more than one household, so.
I do have a,
There would probably be an order approving anything, and so in that we can then define anything you want.
In the order. You guys have any issues with that at all? So that everybody's clear and
okay, and I don't know if Commissioner Doran was going down this road or not, but back to the UGB and folks that do not want to opt in. And so they're being charged even though they're not going to opt in for it.
It's state mandated.
That's state mandated?
It is.
For the UGB, but not for the unincorporated.
Correct.
right. So for
No, wait a
Pendleton,
minute. So outside of the UGB, if we opt out, if you have somebody that opts out, you're still going to charge them.
No,
And that's what?
no.
No.
Outside of the UGB, if you don't want them to have the service, then nobody gets the service. They can't opt in.
You can't opt in or out. It's all or nothing.
So everybody outside of the UGB has to say yes?
They get charged. Yeah, that's the way it's proposed right now.
They get charged. That's what I'm
You
saying.
would have to approve that for everybody outside of the UGB to have this program. Right now, from what I'm hearing, you just want it to be in the UGB that's actually required because it's not required outside. So nobody outside the UGB will be charged unless you approve that.
Okay, because I have a,
That's the way this reads now, is that it includes the unincorporated area.
right.
Okay.
I just don't want somebody to be charged for something that they don't want, that they don't want to be a part of outside of the UGB. Right?
Yeah, I agree with what you just said.
You understand what I'm saying? Okay.
I think there's several.
Maybe I'm
Sanitary
not very-
Service has, for the last 3 years, every year informed everybody, all of our customers within UGB and outside, that this service is coming. Everybody has seemed really excited about it. So, I mean, this year in our newsletter, we put that it is starting July 1st.
Well,
So
I
those
understand,
people would not be able to get it if they do want it.
and I understand where Commissioner Timmons is coming from. If I lived in the unincorporated area and I didn't want to pay it, I don't want to pay it. But what if I'm the only one? I mean,
Exactly.
so, I mean,
And-
it could be a situation of more people wanting it than people who
Exactly.
don't, right?
And within Pendleton, the UGB and the unincorporated are close. So somebody in the UGB may be getting it, and somebody next to them might want it, but can't have it.
Do you have any idea of how many people outside the UGB want the service? Don't want the service?
We have never done a,
We get calls, especially since it's really started becoming more public. We're receiving a lot of calls from people outside of the UGB of Umatilla County wanting to know if it's coming.
Oh, well,
So
that's good.
Are you wanting to know if it's coming, not.
they
when
want, they
it's
want to,
starting, because it was supposed to start July 1st of last year, but because of being held up of addendums and stuff, it doesn't start.
See, that's just the opposite of the calls I'm getting. And so, let me ask you this. The recycle bins that are all in place now, are they going away then? Or will
We only
people
have-
still have the opportunity to
The
recycle?
depots will still stay.
Yeah, so that if you're outside of the UGB, if you're in Milton Free Water, if you're in Athena or Weston or Helix, you still have the opportunity to recycle.
You do, yes.
Okay.
If a person lives in an unincorporated area, do they have to have garbage service? Is that
It's not a requirement.
it is not a requirement?
No, I don't know about Hermiston.
it has to
It'd be the same to all the.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But if I lived in the unincorporated area, I could call you and say, hey, I'm within your service area. Would you, if I paid the X amount of dollars, can I have service?
Well, you could have garbage service, but not.
The coming goes.
Yeah, not-
Yeah,
everybody-
I'm just garbage service.
Yeah. There's people that sell fall now outside of the UGB of Umatilla County.
And most of ours are on garbage service.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I am on the recycle in the unincorporated area. I want everybody to stay on garbage service that my fear and what I'm hearing is if I have to drag 2 cans a quarter mile down to the main road, I'm just canceling my service, and what we end up with is a mess in the Umatilla County, in the area. And we end up having to pick that trash up one way or the other. I would rather see those folks still have the ability to.
Well, most likely, if they're only going to drag one down, it's going to be the garbage can because there are consequences for contaminating the commingled
Well,
with garbage.
I don't get that. Do that again.
So if you're worried about them going off of garbage service, they won't be able to put garbage in their commingled.
I'm worried about it happening twice and saying the heck with it. I don't have the money to pay for 2 cans and dragging 2 cans a quarter of a mile.
It does give them the opportunity, though, if they recycle more, to downsize their garbage can. If
Still
they-
2 cans.
And pay less.
Still 2 cans.
Smaller can.
But it's less money.
No, I'm getting old. I need smaller.
It's smaller.
So if they go smaller, then their rate would still be what they're paying now.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that the commingled or the, where you just said if you, in the recycle bin and you have some stuff that's not clean, maybe like a pizza box or something, and people get in trouble for that, is that gonna eventually, are they gonna figure that one out?
I don't
think a pizza box is gonna.
Yeah, nobody's going to get in trouble, but there will be a lot of education with the customer. I mean, we're having AI cameras that are going to be installed in the truck that'll actually show what's coming out, and we'll be able to see along with the driver too. So there'll be a really big curve in the education piece as we kind of cruise through this new thing. Because I mean, even our depots, I mean, they are horribly contaminated,
Right.
Especially when they're not manned. So, but there's going to be an enormous amount of education. So,
Okay.
Now I'm confused.
Thank you.
Pizza box garbage or is it recycled?
If the pizza box has pizza in it, it's contaminated.
I don't understand. How is a pizza box leaving pizza in it? I've never had a pizza box with pizza left in it. I don't understand that.
Thank you for your answering the questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Denise. I know how to find it.
I got it.
If you guys want me to take a shot at a motion?
I do.
Sure.
And what, I would move to approve, the new recycle rates, the presented rates, with the clarification. Let me start over. We can just do the clarification through the order, right? Okay,
That if you want something specific, it'd be nice if you had it.
okay. I move to approve the recycle proposal as presented by the SWAC with the following changes. That the multi-family curbside recycle service has a clearer and more definitive definition included in the order, and that this does not pertain or does not affect the unincorporated area of Umatilla County.
Second.
Now, one clarification. Unincorporated includes UGB.
Well, that's true. The unincorporated
By the
outside of UGB.
Second.
And a motion and a second. Any other comments?
My only concern is for those who live in the unincorporated area that want the service.
I don't disagree. They can still recycle. If they want to recycle, they can still recycle. And I think if the demand becomes big enough that we can revisit this very quickly.
Okay, do we need to add that into the motion if demand, or can we just do that at a later date?
I don't know if that's possible.
Okay. If it's possible,
The way the program is set up, I
So
don't.
it would have to go through the SWAC, but yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so if the SWAT came back to us later and said, hey, we want to include the unincorporated areas, then we could include it at that time?
If that fits within the legal parameters of the funding.
I'm looking at Mike, seeing if he's, are you, does that make sense to you, Mike?
Mike retired.
My concern is for those who live in the unincorporated areas that want the service.
Right.
And if the SWAC came to us at a later date and said, hey, if we pass the ordinance today without the unincorporated area, but 6 months down the road or whatever, the unincorporated area says, hey, we really want to be included in this, and the SWAC came to the Board of Commissioners, could we include that at a later date?
You could include it at a later date, and just to be clear, the SWAC discussed this, and Joe is here to represent the SWAC as well. The SWAC discussed this, and it firmly believes that the unincorporated areas should be included. I think that we've determined, we don't have nobody has a formal survey, but I believe the service is in demand enough, and what the franchisees both represented was that they proposed to include the unincorporated areas. I think the demand for their service is high, although those folks do still have the opportunity to recycle at depots. If you recycle, $8 a month is cheap compared to stacking it up in your garage and making a trip a week or whatever you do. I think you're going to find very quickly that you're going to have enough phones ringing that you're going to want to include these folks. That's just my personal opinion of what the franchisees have expressed in the meetings.
And if the phone started ringing, I would gladly change it without a problem.
I know there's no more upfront funding though, right, Mike, after this? So if they decided that they wanted to add outside the UGB, it would come at the full cost of the program and not the subsidized cost.
Correct.
You're gonna buy new trucks just for the outside area?
It's a one-time, this time only situation. I will say one more thing, that in the Pendleton franchise, there's a handful, a few hundred customers outside the UGB. In the Hermiston area, I believe that's where you're gonna hear from people, because, and I don't know where the UGB is in Hermiston, but I know there are a significant amount of customers outside. That's where I think you're getting it.
That's where I'm getting the calls now that don't want it.
Joe, do you have any other input?
No, I think the only thing is, I mean, it wouldn't be the SWAC bringing it per se, the franchise.
Correct.
Bring it to the SWAC.
Correct.
And then bring it,
It
so.
would be the franchisee, bring it to the SWAC, say we want to add this.
Yeah,
So what would, you said that there's no funding available if we pass it without the unincorporated area. What would that funding include? Yeah, probably better. I'm sorry. Cindy?
PO box room. Just like I said, so it's the trucks and the carts and the education piece that would have to be. So if you guys accepted it now, it'd be $8 for everybody. If we were, I don't know exactly what the cost would be because it determines how many customers that we're doing. But right now, we're just, the sense I'm getting is we're just doing the UGB, so we only have enough trucks to do, the 4 cities and the UGB for Morrow County and for Umatilla County. So we could add that other truck and carts and the delivery of those carts at the $8, but if you guys decide not to do that, there is no upfront capital for coming back later.
And that upfront capital you're talking about is coming from what Commissioner Timmons read?
Yes.
but that's not the way the program was sold legislatively, is that it was 4,000, population of 4,000 and above. And then it was going to be cycled in to the full state. I think it was within, Mike, you can tell me, within 24 months or 36 months, or there was a date. And that those fundings, those upfront fundings were still going to be available. So I'm not clear on the funding not being available.
So the implementation date of the RMA and the curbside commingled for communities over 4,000 and their UGB, the implementation date was July 1, 2025.
Right.
In the legislative body, in the body of the legislation. The problem with that was that the funding that kept talking about for trucks and carts and all those things also wasn't available until July 1, 2025, because Circular Action Alliance hadn't been formed yet. The funds hadn't flowed into it. So that was a flaw in the legislation that said the service starts this date and this is when you can get the money. And that was our argument with DEQ and TA all along, is we can't start the service the day the funds are available. That's why the implementation has taken, DEQ is giving leeway, and I don't know what either, I believe Pendleton is considering July 1, 26 to start the service, and I don't either.
Yes.
Mike, I'm sorry, I'm getting notifications from our IT guys that they can't hear you in the back online, so I'm sorry.
Sure.
I can hear you from the back though.
Mike McHenry, Chair of the Umatilla County Solid Waste Committee. Address is 54328 Upper Dry Creek Road, Weston, Oregon. And what I was saying was that the Recycling Modernization Act was due to be implemented July 1, 2025. The services provided commingled recycling service to communities over 4,000 in population and their urban growth boundary. The flaw in the legislation was that the implementation date and the availability of the funds were the same date, July 1, 2025. Therefore, DEQ and Circular Action Alliance have given leeway for implementation, and both your franchisees, Pendleton and Hermiston, both plan to implement this service July 1, 2026, with these rates in front of you.
And going back to Cindy's, I know we have a motion and a second on the table, but while you're there, going back to Cindy's or Commissioner Timmons' earlier question, the producers, that's a continuing expense to the producers to come back to pay for, like Mike said, the transportation to Portland and all of these other things. But that money's also being earmarked for as the program expands. And so
Now, that isn't what he said. He
I
said
know.
it was a one-shot deal. And that
It is.
isn't what I'm seeing on here.
There are
So-
different portions. The Recycling Modernization Act is extremely complex.
That's what they say on here.
we have everybody.
To it. So there are the funds that flow into Circular Action Alliance do continue on from producers, and they pay for things like the ongoing transportation of materials from remote communities like here to a sort center. The contamination reduction efforts with the AI technology and cameras, that those things continue. That funding, there's 5 funding mechanisms in the RMA. One of those is the upfront capital cost of this equipment, and that is a one-time and goes away. So
The upfront cost is a one-shot.
exactly.
Right,
The
yeah.
ongoing funding sources are for other things like transportation, contamination reduction, and forgive me, I've forgotten all the specific details, but
I would be shocked if you remembered them all.
Yeah, and you know
It's
what?
been 3 years of this.
So that answers my question, is that, so now we're back to the consumer, right?
Right.
So we're gonna take a carton of milk, right?
Mm-hmm.
The consumer's gonna pay for that because the producer produces the milk carton, right? So that's gonna be charged to the consumer. The consumer is also gonna be charged because they gotta get rid of that milk carton, right?
Right. And that's how this was sold.
That's called
That's how this
Yeah,
was sold
I got it right here.
in the
Circular.
legislature, was that, hey, the consumer isn't going to pay for this, the producers are. And the bottom line is the consumer pays whether it's the producer charging or the hauling company. And in this case, both are.
The part that's not really jiving with me is that it's a one-time payment one-time implementation payment. Because the program, as designed legislatively, was to start with the 4,000 plus and then expand to the rest of the state and within a time limit.
So let's back up and I'll give you a little more history on that. So the Recycling Modernization Act, again, is very complex, does many things. But the majority of Oregon, including populations of 4,000 and more, already have commingled recycling in place. there were only 11 communities in the state of Oregon with a population of 4,000 or more, cities with 4,000 or more in Oregon that did not have curbside commingled. And Baker, Hermiston, Pendleton, Milton Freewater, Umatilla, and there's a couple on the coast. Anyway, there were only 11 in the state. And so the reason for this upfront funding was to give those 11 communities a jump start to provide the service. And those are the only 11 in the state of Oregon that don't currently already have this.
4 out of the 11 are ours.
Or 5. Yeah,
So
right.
what is going to be the funding mechanism for the rest of the state?
Well, the ongoing funding mechanisms for transportation and contamination reduction, those will apply to the rest of the state, but this upfront cost is only for communities that don't already have the service.
But what about the communities like Weston, Helix,
Those
Island Rock?
Those are under 4,000. They can choose to opt
No,
in.
but when the program starts to include those, because the program's supposed to be statewide.
It is supposed to be the way I understand it, it is supposed to be statewide, but only mandated for cities over 4,000 in their UGB. Today. And the way and correct me, you have 2 of your smaller franchise haulers are here. The way I understand it, they have the opportunity to opt into this or not. Is that correct?
And we only have to offer like depot service. We don't have to do curbside at this juncture.
Understood.
At this juncture,
Right.
yeah, that's my concern is what happens in 5 years when the state says, okay, everybody, Athena, Weston, Pilot Rock, you're all
mandate.
in.
Yeah.
Will they get a upfront bite at the apple?
My understand, I don't know if I have the answer to that.
Well, that's
Crystal ball's a little fuzzy.
when the program was sold. It was sold.
on an electric truck.
It was sold. They already have them.
Yeah, so I'm not confident. There's
Hold on, we got it. Just a second, guys. Just a second. We got to have a little bit of a organization here. So
These folks need to come up front. and-
So when the program was put together and sold, even at the AOC level, and we had several AOC people very involved, along with you and others, that was the reason, the additional reason for the ongoing expense to the producers is as the program became implemented statewide, and I think it was 5 years is what was in the original document. So I guess you could call it a mandate if you have to do it within 5 years. But that those expenses were reimbursable, much like the trucks and the upfront cost of today. So I guess we're one of those counties that we're right in the middle, that we have to make that decision on both all at the same time.
Right, and the thing I do remember, I can't answer the question 100% certain, but I know the funding periods under the RMA are a 2-year, a biennium. 2025 to 2027 is the first one.
Yeah.
And they had to make applications, sanitary disposal and Pendleton, for how many trucks, how many carts, how much software, all these things, and they've done all that. And my understanding is that you can't apply for funding, and maybe the smaller haulers can in the 2027 to 2029 biennium. I'm not confident about that.
Well, that, you just brought something else up there, Mike. If all of those applications are already in, then the price is already built in to Kevin's territory. He will not have any additional expenses if he already planned to do the unincorporated area.
We're given the amount of trucks and the amount of carts that we've requested. If it's not approved, go back and we do not pay for that.
Or have to pay it back is the way it's written.
Yes, we have so many trucks that we have allotted. I've already, assuming that you guys aren't going to pass it, I've already pulled our cart order back by around 3,000.
Okay.
So, yeah, so none of that stuff.
But the truck order
When
still.
did you pull that back?
I think just a little bit after our last SWAC meeting, or when we all discussed.
When we all said.
Yeah. It's still an option. We can still pull the trigger on it, but.
But the trucks are already ordered.
Yeah, but, so we get pre-ordered trucks all the time, so either we take on these 3,000 customers that we have in Umatilla County. If we don't, that truck will be put somewhere else.
So is a recycle truck different than your normal waste pickup truck?
No, not any longer. Especially, so we don't have to have curbside glass here, which they do on the other side of the state. So it's basically just like a garbage truck.
So what would be the additional truck expense? If you're putting it all into the same truck, the same amount of waste, why would you have additional truck?
There's two different trucks. There's a garbage.
I just asked you that.
Oh, no, two separate routes.
Yeah,
Garbage route, recycle route, two different trucks.
two drivers, two trucks. Two different streams. Garbage stream that goes to Finley and the commingled stream that goes to Pioneer, or wherever we send it.
But they're the same kind of truck.
Same kind of truck.
Okay.
So my fear, it's still the same fear I had before, is if we say no to the unincorporated areas today, are they going to be encumbered a bigger cost down the road when they say, hey, we want that service?
I think the answer is likely yes. I don't know if we have the answer with certainty, but I think the answer is likely yes.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a friendly motion to your amendment that we do include the unincorporated areas in this.
I disagree.
No.
I disagree.
You want to?
Can I discuss on-
Get more for information and bring it back to the April 1st meeting for a decision.
Yeah, I guess we could do that. We have a motion in a second. So let me ask you this. You guys are still looking at July 1 of implementation?
It'll actually be July 6th. It's a Monday, but yeah.
July 6th.
As the motion maker, I have no issue with tabling it the second.
That's fine.
Need them down. I needed I made the motion, so I'm going to change this motion to table this issue till we have a chance to clarify some additional information.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the easy one. Next item is a new collection franchise request. Bob?
All right. So we've received an application for a new collection franchise. It's been submitted by Addie's Alternative LLC, who is requesting approval of a solid waste collection franchise that would focus on the collection and recovery of organic materials generated by commercial and industrial customers in the unincorporated areas of Umatilla County. The applicant's proposed business model includes collecting organic waste, primarily agricultural waste, composting the materials, and then marketing the compost to farms in the region for use as soil amendments and organic fertilizer. A conditional use permit for the composting operation has been tentatively approved by Umatilla County Planning and is not considered as part of this application. The applicant is also working on an application to Department of Environmental Quality for that composting site. So that's something that's separate from this request. The criteria of approval for new solid waste collection franchises is outlined in Umatilla County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 50, which is our solid waste ordinance. The application for establishing the new collection franchise was received by the Solid Waste Advisory Committee on January 22nd. During a special meeting of the SWAC held February 23rd, the committee heard testimony from the applicant as well as existing franchise representatives. The SWAC recommended denial of the request to establish a new collection franchise, and a copy of the minutes from both of those meetings in January and February are included in your packets. The commissioners are required to review the recommendation of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and by order grant, deny, or modify the proposed franchise request. Also included in your packets is the application that was received from Addie's Alternative, letters of support that the applicant provided to us, a presentation that they made, that the applicant made to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and then those meeting minutes. I believe the applicant is here today and has prepared a presentation, and I've given that to Kelsey. So at this time, if the applicant, I guess, are there any questions for staff before we move on to that?
Any questions, or do you want to see the presentation first? Okay.
So we'll have the applicant come up and
Okay, Luke Dines and 78227.
Look at you go.
207. I'm on it. I listened to Kevin get questioned a couple times. Okay, how's this thing work? Just click over? Perfect. Luke Dines, Addie's Alternative. We started here, Umatilla County, as a feed company. I don't know, 15 years ago, roughly. So here we go. This slide is just an executive summary. Sorry, I'm going to apologize like I do in every meeting. I'm not a very good public speaker, so I'm just going to read. If you guys have any questions, let me know. We're trying to launch a new compost facility to reduce the food waste in Umatilla County. Mainly this comes from the request of the processors and the farmers to figure out what we do with the material that's currently going to feed in the past, that now we have too much material that is being generated to be able to continue with the feed market. Just because of oversupply, it's causing some issues. And so the low end feed materials are now, we're needing to find new homes for them. So we think turning it into compost is the best option for these guys. And right now we're importing as a company at least 130,000 tons of compost into Umatilla County for the farmers. So we think we can replace a lot of that input by producing it here ourselves. It supports the local sustainability and circular economy goals, I would argue, for the community. The region's lacking capacity. We do have compost facility here in Pendleton that, per the state numbers from 2022, they composted 196 tons. And looking at it, it's about 0.16, maybe 1 acre of a compost facility, which is way undersized for what would be produced material-wise out of the food processors and the farmers that we'll get into later. We've been a large part of the organics management portion of the county for me personally since '99 with the farmers and the processors. So we're already a large part of the system. It's going to create local jobs, increase the revenue for the county and the citizens, all while keeping the money here in the county. We're based in Umatilla County. Here's just some overview for what Addie's does in different parts of the country. Sorry, I can't see that, so I'm gonna have to slide over on my own. Getting old. So Addie's is a for-profit business. Obviously, we built our business recovering organics and fish away and upcycling them into markets to sell for profit without protection of any franchise or without any government subsidies or mandates. We built a business on feed, and we do it in conjunction with the EPA and DEQ. We've been exempted as a feed facility for our current facility. And we're governed by the Department of Ag, not DEQ at the time at our feed facilities for that reason. We work really close with the EPA of Washington. We were part of their used food well planning and sat on the board and helped them do that, come up with those rules and what's best. I personally sat on the Deschutes County SWAC board for picking the landfill and going through all those meetings up until 2023. And at Addie's, we have a compost facility in Bend since 2022, handling food waste and other organics, agricultural organics there on our farm. We work with other large actual waste companies such as Waste Management, Republic, Waste Connections in the past on marketing their organic materials that don't go into their normal streams. So we'll bring them back to the ag realm and help them move that volume. And Addie's is a national organics management company. We have facilities in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Texas, Georgia coming in fall of 26. And we're handling contracts for companies such as Lamb Weston, ConAgra, McCain Foods, Mars, General Mills, Frito-Lay, and many other people that between those states. And in Umatilla County alone, last year we did over 130,000 tons of recovery just from the food processors and the farmers in Umatilla County alone. And why we think franchises, hall franchises needed. Jeez, again, this thing would go over. If we're hauling directly, then we have contact with the generators. A big portion of the training, as you guys talked about on the last presentation, we have the same issue. We got to make sure that the garbage isn't getting thrown in with the organics. We got to make sure they don't have the bags and the totes. This is all, we do the same thing for the feed portion. So we're already training these people. We're already working with these people. We have to make sure that it's clean in order to take its feed. So we understand this process, and that's why we think we should be involved in the hauling of it, because it's not new to us. We think that gets you through the first couple with the cleanliness. We think we can manage costs for the generators to ensure that we don't see high increases in short time periods. Anytime anybody gets into a new industry, there's going to be a learning curve. And I think that for maybe current franchise haulers getting into a large scale organics management process in Umatilla County, you might see some learning curve, which could cause an increase in costs and everything to the current people we're working with. And it became pretty apparent after our first meeting with the county and Waste Connections that the only way we were going to be able to solidify the fact that we could put the money into the compost facility was to make sure that we could insure the haul, because Waste Connections made it pretty clear they weren't going to haul to us. So they said we could open the facility, but couldn't guarantee they were going to bring it to us. So that in order to pay for the facility, we got to have some sort of certainty to make sure that we can cover that with the volume that we need to pay for it, or we're going to have an unprotected investment, which doesn't make sense. As we talked already, we're already the main marketing manager for the organics for the processors and the farmers in the Umatilla County. I just got a call yesterday from a customer, large potato customer. He's got 20,000 tons that doesn't get to go to potato processors now that he needs to take us to feed, and they're one of the people that gave us the recommendation letter. We move large volumes for them, and they rely on us to do that. So we're just here trying to protect mainly the business we've been doing for the last 15 years and be able to build a new market for the volume that isn't going to be able to go to feed. So we're trying to build a secondary market for the county to help protect that. So this one is, again, why we think we should get it. Organics aren't, from what we can see, we don't see organics on large scale being offered by the other franchises, except for Brandon, which in Athena, he works with Lakeside. And I've talked to Brandon about we're not here to take volume from any other franchise. So we'll be able to work with him to make sure that he can continue doing what he's doing for him. We don't want to do that. We just want the ability to build a secondary market. But as far as Umatilla County, on the Hermiston side of things, that's all being handled by us anyway. There's no other franchise so taking that volume, so it's not like we're competing over volumes with a current franchise. Side dumps and high volume commodity trailers, I don't see listed on any franchise equipment list. I do again know that Brandon has some, so he's a good fit over there. So we definitely like to work with him and make sure that we're not taking anything out of his realm. We already have the infrastructure in place as far as the dispatch, the material handling, the loaders, the compost facility as soon as we get the permit. So I think we're pretty well fit. Jump in and get this thing going here as soon as we get DEQ finished up. And, you know, in the last two SWAC meetings, it's been pretty apparent that, you know, it's been pretty tough to see any support coming from any of the franchise holders on us being able to haul, which I understand their need to and want to protect what they need to do and their business, their current business. But again, we're not competing with their current business. They're not hauling it right now. So, and I think that's part of the requirements of the statute, that if we can show that they're not currently doing it and that there's a current need, that we can apply for a franchise. So that's what we're trying to do. Again, we think we meet the requirements for those reasons. And next to it, you know, lower carbon footprint with logistics. We're hauling in to a lot of these farmers. So back hauling the material back out makes it efficient, makes it cheaper. And I mean, that's how we've been able to build a private business, is by increasing the efficiencies for these people in the agricultural realm and the processors. I mean, they work with pennies a pound profit, so they don't have the ability to just push it along. It's pretty tough in this community, as you guys know. And yeah, again, we've been servicing most of these streams for the last 2 decades. We think we're the best fit to take it back to the highest reuse market with our feed and compost option. And, you know, the fact that we've been moving over 130,000 tons a year of compost back into Umatilla County, that shows that we know how to market it. It shows we know how to do the logistics, and we're able to make money on it. In our last meeting, Pendleton Sanitary expressed the fact that, you know, there's no market to compost and they have to give theirs away. That's not, we don't do that. So we think we would be the best fit to be able to manage that compost if that's their current approach.
So can I ask a quick question? Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your presentation, but I thought I heard you say that one of the SWAC meetings, the other providers were concerned and expressed a little pushback. But if you're not competing against them, what's their big issue for this to happen?
Good question. I don't know. They want to protect the franchise. And if you give us a haul franchise, then one of the comments was made that if you give us a franchise, then it could go into garbage. But we're asking for organics. We're asking for you guys to give us the organics ability, not the trash ability. We don't want to haul garbage. We don't want to do that. We just filled out your application that was provided to us, and it doesn't have a spot on that application for us to give a specialty portion. So best I can understand is their struggle is, Mike made it clear, and one of the other SWAC board members made a comment that unless it was able to specifically meet out, that they wouldn't agree with it. So, but there wasn't a spot for that on the application. But we've been very clear that that's all we want.
So I'm also looking at the minutes from the January SWAC meeting, and it looks like there was a concern about being premature without permits from DEQ, but it looks like you already applied for those permits.
Yes, we're in the process of that right now.
And you haven't heard back from them, I'm assuming?
And I mean, we're actually waiting on the county to help us. There's a chicken and an egg process with getting the permitting through that Bob could talk. Bob could talk better about that than what. So there's kind of a hang up there. Okay. But like I said, our concern is if we can't get the volume, then why spend the money to put the facility in? If we can't.
I got you. That makes sense. Yeah. So
that's why we're asking.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the same questions, Mr. Shaver. And I did talk to Doug, and it looks like we can put limitations in if we grant it, we can put limitations and criteria on it, so.
And obviously, I want to protect our other franchisees too. I want to make sure that they're whole. So that's just kind of that's the reason behind my questions.
Yeah,
just
and
so
I
you know.
agree with that. I mean, I think we've been pretty upfront about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yep, no worries.
Sir, please finish your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Here's just a list of examples of people we do work with in the county. Obviously, you guys have some reference letters, but here's a list. This isn't all of them, but this is a list of customers that we do with inside and outside of the county that will be bringing volume to us, which we get the compost facility in, we're going to see some revenue from outside the county coming back into the county due to the fact of the list of people outside of the county that we also deal with that is in a close region. So this is just informational for, the different types of material that are here inside of Umatilla County that we're working with. When we did our presentation to get our CUP dealt with, Ditchin showed up and he expressed the fact that he alone had about 15 million pounds of grass screenings that he would like to be able to have a home for, which is a lot. So, but I'll just let you guys have a second to look at the list over if you have any questions.
See, yard waste, does that mean we're going to have a third can at our curb?
No, I mean that we would look at working with the landscapers really on that.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Just give them an option if they want somewhere to go with it. With as much wet waste as we're going to have from the processors and everything, we've got to manage the dry as well to be able to make a good compost. So what's not on this list is pallets. We're a huge processing community, so the number of broken pallets that we create and send to the landfill, we've worked through a process with a wood chipper that they can now chip those up, remove the nails, get all that out of the way, and we could use that as a stock to our compost as the able to help make the material. So there's other stuff on this list that we can work with them on and build secondary uses for.
So where does that wood products end up?
Right now, from my understanding, everything's headed to the landfill right now.
But if you used it, chipped
It'll
it
go
up.
into compost. We'll use it as a base of compost. So when you make compost, you use multiple different ingredients to come up with the end use or the end test that you want. And so we would use it as an ingredient.
And then where would that compost end up?
Back at the farms here locally.
Okay. Like out on the field?
Yes.
I only asked because I know that we had a composter, and this has been several years ago. And what they tried to do was put it around grapevines, and that was actually toxic. And they didn't realize that. And so you had a composter that didn't know what they were doing. And it was a wood product. So I just wondered, do you get close to?
We bring a lot of wood chips in now from Waste Management, and we work with local farmers that are composting right now.
Okay.
And we have a mix between chicken manure and that wood chip material coming out of their transfer stations that is working fine for the potatoes and the onions and all of those crops.
Thank you.
Yep, we don't do anything really with especially winery, blueberry stuff. That stuff's finicky.
Okay, thank you.
Just some operational objectives, again, speak about maximizing efficiency of logistics with backhauls and in and out. Even on the compost side, we'll haul from the, say, farmer's material to us, and then we'll backhaul the compost back to the same farmer. So we'll be able to do round trips with the way that we're set up here. Work with the county and suppliers to maintain a low cost and effective option for transportation marketing of the organics to the highest use. Maintain regulatory compliance with Umatilla plus the state. You know, as you guys seen with the recycling, there's also a lot of talk about the organics for the state of Oregon and keeping food out of the landfill and all of that. We haven't seen those come in yet, but they're right on the brink. So we're not going to use that as an argument, but it's there and something that we should think about. Again, just maximizing the logistics, minimizing carbon footprint with utilizing backhauls. I mean, it's all the same. I mean, it's just about efficiency for us. The previous meetings, we've had comments from Waste Connections and Mike, a couple of them, materials being handled through land application. They're asking, where do the products go now? And to us, materials are being handled through the land application, animal feed, and to us, as part of the showing that they're not handling these materials, is the fact that they have to ask where they're going. So we're not taken out of their realm, but it is being handled through land application and animal feed. And the land application portion, we need to start managing better with the nitrates that we're seeing in all the waters and everything. And so that's the conversation with Lamb West, and that's why we're working with them and others to try to make sure we can come up with another option so we're not continuing to oversupply this land app process. And then Whitehall franchise without a disposal, we just talked about that. Thank you. It'll be tough for us to invest in the disposal site if we don't have a clear definition that we're going to be able to bring the product in. So here's just some notes I took off. You look at the DEQ and EPA websites, they're all expressing the specialized handling experience for maintaining the integrity of materials, preserve it for the highest market. These are just in specializing facilities to handle materials, specialized markets required, understanding the marketplace, best fit for these products. These are just a few things that off of their websites that if you look up and research how they suggest that organics are being handled, these are three of the glaring issues, is that it's a specialized market. It's not like the other contemporary waste streams. Here's just some county benefits. The tax revenue for the disposal will stay in the county. Tax revenue for disposal right now from out of county would come into the county. We'd have some increased jobs, internal management of organics and increased options for disposal here, and then increased goods and services sold inside the county, seeing how we keep the majority of that compost here. So here's just the references. You guys have the letters from Stolz and Lamb Weston. We talked about the Ditchin's testimony at the at the first meeting we had. So that was just reiterate that. Conclusion, we think, we should, if you look at the 50.41 requirements for collections franchise, A2 says that if it's not presently being served, then we can apply. We don't feel that's presently being served by a franchise holder. A3 not being adequately served. If they're not servicing it, then clearly it's not being served. We have the ability to provide the service. We're doing it now. We B1 have the ability to provide equal or more equipment to manage the volume on than current haulers on day one. Due to the fact that we are the current haulers, then I would say that we have that ability, even though we're not a franchise. B2, we have specialized side dumps to keep the water off the roads and the highways, which would be required to do this. You have to have watertight material, watertight trailers and equipment. So we have that. B3, you have to prove that you can manage the material. We have 25 years experience now in Umatilla County on managing large volumes of organics. have access, before you have to have access to sites. So until our compost facilities open, we have multiple access to other compost facilities across the river in Washington, along with the same access to Finley Buttes and everything else that the other haulers would have access to. So we can handle it in a way that is handled correctly. And then obviously we stay in compliance with county and state. So there we go. That's where I'm at.
Thanks, Luke. So in front of us is recommendation for approval or modify the proposal or deny the proposal. And as John or Commissioner Schaefer pointed out earlier, that SWAC did review this, and according to the minutes, it says, furthermore, some members of the committee noted that the application is unlimited, which makes the uncomfortable about approving without limitations. So I think that's kind of where we are. Comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. I appreciate your presentation. And because we already have franchises in place in Umatilla County, I wondered, you said the application does not give you a place to put what you would be doing. And so I think if you narrowed down your scope, I would be a little bit more willing to take a look, just because we already have people in place that we don't want you as a person coming in to bump into these folks.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so I think we need to be a little bit more specific about exactly, I mean, you've got years of experience and all of that, but apparently, there's must be some gray lines here that people are concerned about. And so I think if you narrowed it down to exactly what you're going to do, I think I would have a little bit more willingness to say yes.
And is that something you guys can do?
It is. That's what's in front.
That's my comment.
Yeah. Disagree, John or Commissioner Shaker?
No, I think it was a great presentation. I appreciated it, and you answered my questions already. So
Okay.
If you guys want me to take a stab,
Yeah.
stab at this too, because there's not a motion on it.
I noticed that. Yeah.
I would move for approval of the solid waste. I would move for approval of the applicant on the solid waste collection franchise with these conditions included. One is that it has to be that DEQ and county permits have to be in place for the identified products that were in the presentation. And number two is that the only place that the collection and hauling is to Addie's or a different compost site, but does not involve any of the solid waste that's already being hauled by the franchises that we have now.
I can agree to that.
So
I can agree to that.
okay, then I would second that motion.
Motion, comments?
Thanks, Commissioner Doran. Can you be a little more specific on what you mean by making sure the DEQ and county permits are in place? Are you saying you want the disposal site, the disposal franchise to be in place before the collection of franchise would be approved? So Mr. Dines need to get through the permitting with DEQ for the disposal site and through all the county approvals for that?
Right. That, yes, that's what I'm proposing.
My second agrees with that. I'm assuming that's what you were looking at before, Doug?
I have a question or a comment, I guess, and this would be to Bob. Bob, on these other solid waste franchises that we have, is it listed what they can collect?
So they are approved to collect solid waste, which the definition of solid waste in the ordinance is pretty expansive. I can provide that for you if you would like.
Mr. McHenry?
Can I have a chance to speak?
Sure, come on up.
Mr. Chair?
Come on up.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Luke.
Mm-hmm.
Mike McHenry, Chair of the Umatilla County Solid Waste Committee, 54328 Upper Dry Creek Road, West. I guess I'd like to give a brief overview from the Solid Waste Committee's perspective on the issue at hand, including Mr. Dine's application, as you recognized, would run over the top of all 4 of your existing franchisees as it's currently written, allowing him to do whatever he chose. So let me give you the reasons. As you saw in your records, the Solid Waste Committee denied this unanimously for multiple reasons. The first thing, I can refute point by point what Mr. Dines has said with statistics and using information the way he wants. The first thing is he used DEQ statistics from 4 years ago that are inaccurate. Pendleton Sanitary Service has run a composting operation since 1997, 29 years, doing the exact same things he's proposing to do with yard waste, with food waste, with wood chips, with all the things so there is a facility in place. Now, is it the capacity to accept what he's proposing to? No, it is not. That doesn't mean it couldn't be expanded or Waste Connections couldn't do something at one of their facilities in which they do have solid waste permits established already. Number 2, and the most important reason that the Solid Waste Committee denied this was because all the material Mr. Dines is proposing, and now remember this, he's been hauling this material for over 20 years, according to him. How has he done that without a franchise? Has he just been breaking the law, or why now does he need a license to do this? There is an agricultural use exclusion, an MOU between the Oregon Department of Agriculture and DEQ that excludes the specific agricultural wastes he's currently hauling. That's how he's done it for the last 20 years. So technically, according to Oregon law, and that exclusion specifically excludes the things he's dealing with. That's how his business was formed and how it's been managed. That's how he's gotten away with it. That's one of the main reasons. The second reason we chose to deny it, one is it's expansive. It runs over all of your franchises and allows him to do anything they do. Third, your Chapter 50 of the county code specifically states if the applicant proposes to replace another franchisee in whole or in part, which he's proposing all to replace or do the same as all of the other franchisees, it shall be able on the first day of the proposed franchise term to provide service at least equal to that presently being provided. That means all services. That means residential, roll-off, recycling, commingled, the entire ball of services. And part of the franchise system is so that you don't have someone come in, this is a perfect example, and say, I want to only do roll-off service, or I only want to provide service to Keystone, or whatever other high-margin customer there may be. If you allow this franchise and carve out a niche for him, which is already excluded under state law for what he's doing, who's the next applicant? Who's the next franchisee you're going to have, and how many beyond them for what specific portions of waste? And now solid waste in the Oregon definition is complicated, but the specific agricultural waste and what he does with this material is excluded from solid waste under ORS 459. That's my argument. That's the argument I gave to the Solid Waste Committee, and we discussed this at length, and the recommendation to you, to the commissioners, is to deny this application for those reasons. I'm glad to answer any questions.
No, and I appreciate that, Mike, and that's why we're putting that, my suggestion is to put limitations on it so that it doesn't do those things.
And again, I'll reiterate the argument, who's next and what is the next niche we're going to carve out? And how many franchisees will you have doing how many different things? And you know what solid waste and recycling and what's happening legislatively and how many things there are. This gives not only Mr. Dines, but whoever the next applicants are, it's a changing world, agreed. But according to your code, and according to the law, and according to the solid waste definition and the exclusion of these products, he hasn't needed a franchise and doesn't need one. That's my input.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Mike.
Mr. McHenry. I have a question for Mr. Dines again.
And no, you don't have to give your name.
Got it.
My question is this: why did you apply for a franchise?
Well, as Mike mentioned, we do understand the MOU very well. We've lived in it for 20 years. The difference that Mike doesn't understand is we're exempt as long as it goes to animal feed, or we're a farmer that's bringing it in for our own fertilizer. The moment you start charging, or Lamb Weston has to subsidize freight to get their low-graded feed into a further away feed market, now we have to charge for that. That is not covered by the MOU. All of a sudden.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not, Mike.
It's specifically excluded in the definition.
Okay, call DEQ.
According,
I'm not going to argue with you, but that is the answer to your question. I live with this every day for 20 years, which is why we have been able to do our job every day. We understand the MOU.
So now you're having to
If we
charge?
go bring it to compost, if we bring it to compost, we'll have to charge a fee. And if we need to truck it from here to, say, Yakima to get it to a feeder, because the feeders here are already full and they can't take that material, which is a good likeliness due to the fact that our cattle numbers around here are down and whatever, we're gonna have to start marketing this stuff further away. Then the value of the feed may not cover the cost of the trucking, which means the plant will have to subsidize that trucking. And once you get into that realm, it becomes a problem when we have to start charging for it. So we're here asking for permission so we don't get in trouble and we don't violate some rule, because we do understand the rule.
And that answers my question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can you repeat the motion? Oh,
Probably
come
not.
on.
It was so easy the first time. I move for approval that Addie's Alternatives be granted a solid waste collection franchise for collection of materials with the limitations of only to be used to Addie's locations, and with the limitations that the DEQ permit be in place, DEQ county permit be in place.
Wasn't there a third part of that?
Yes.
What?
That it's not included what's currently being,
Oh, yeah, and only for the products identified by Addie's on their slide.
Nay.
Motion passes 2-1. Mr. Timmons? Negative. Look at that, we're all the way to number 4.
It's almost 10:30.
I know. Now have a bathroom break here, please.
if you want to go ahead and try to do the land use since it was scheduled for 10 o'clock.
Yes.
Number 9.
Number 9, land use hearing and presentation. Is there anybody online? No?
Just okay.
Hold on, Meg.
You're good. I gotta get there too.
Okay.
I wasn't ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, I call this land use hearing before the Umatilla County Board of Commissioners to order. My name is Dan Dorn. I am the chair of the Umatilla County Board of Commissioners. Our role today is to conduct a public hearing concerning a requested approval to develop a photovoltaic solar generation facility and associated components. I will begin the hearing by asking staff to summarize the application. I will then ask applicant to testify, followed by those in favor of the application. Then any person in opposition who have questions or concerns will also have a chance to speak. If there is opposition or questions, staff may respond to them. The commissioners may also ask staff and witness questions throughout the hearing until the record closes. Any person with an intent in today's agenda may offer relevant and or written testimony, but please only speak when I identify you for the purpose. When you testify, please begin by clearly stating your name and address. If you represent someone else, please say so. If you have any exhibits you want to consider, such as a copy of your testimony, photographs, petitions, or other documents or physical evidence, please provide it to me or the staff. It will be marked as part of the record. Thank you. Call for abstentions, bias, conflict of interest, declaration of ex parte contact, and objections to the jurisdiction. Commissioner Timmons?
No.
Nope. The agenda identifies the applicable substantive criteria for evaluating the request. Staff will review these criteria. All testimony and evidence must be directed toward these criteria. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient detail to afford the decision-making body and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Call for the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. Megan Dobchevsky, Planning Division Manager for the county. Before I start, I'm just going to let everyone in the room know, just because this is a land use hearing, if you want a copy of the decision, please sign the legal size paper in the back so I can mail it to you. The applicant before you today requests approval to construct and operate a 90 megawatt solar photovoltaic energy generation facility with battery energy storage systems on lands zoned exclusive farm use. The project will be confined within a 450-acre microsited project area within the identified 626-acre project area extent. The applicant is requesting a post-acknowledgement plan amendment and an exception to statewide planning goal 3, which pertains to agricultural lands. The applicant has provided proposed comprehensive plan text amendment language in support of the request. The applicant is requesting this Goal 3 exception in order to site the project on more than 12 acres of high-value farmland, which is an existing limitation in Oregon Revised Statute and Oregon Administrative Rules. The request also includes a conditional use permit for the solar generation facility, battery storage, and accessory components, including an operations and maintenance building. The included table of contents includes the applicant's application attachments that were submitted with the text amendment and conditional use permit applications. The applicant's attachment I in the goal exception application and attachment P in the conditional use permit application are not included in your packet, as both of these attachments are the confidential cultural resource survey report. This report was shared with county staff and CTUIR. Also included are exhibits 1 through 4, which were submitted both prior to and at the Planning Commission hearing. Notice of the applicant's request of notifying the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioner hearings was mailed on January 2nd, 2026 to nearby property owners and necessary agencies. Notice of the January 2022 Planning Commission hearing and the March 18th Board of Commissioner hearing was published in the East Oregonian on January 7th. The criteria for approval are found in ORS 197-732 sub 2C and ORS 215-446, OAR 660 Division 4 Section 22, 660 Division 33 Section 130 subsection 5, and 660 Division 33 Section 180 subsection 38. And Umatilla County Development Code Sections 152, 060, 061, 487, 488, 611, and 152-750 through 755. On January 22nd, 2026, at a public hearing, The Planning Commission reviewed the Goal 3 exception and recommended approval to the County Board of Commissioners with a unanimous 4-0 decision. The Planning Commission also unanimously approved the conditional use permit to site up to 450 acres of a solar generation facility with ancillary uses, including battery storage. The provided preliminary findings and conclusions reflect the Goal 3 exception, comprehensive plan text amendment, recommendation of approval, and the conditional use permit approval as decided by the Planning Commission. Following this Planning Commission recommendation, the board must also hold a public hearing and decide whether or not to adopt the proposed Goal 3 exception and text amendment. So just to clarify, the Planning Commission made a recommendation that you approve the Goal 3 exception and comprehensive plan text amendment, and they approved the conditional use permit. The conditional use permit is not before you today. It would only come before you if that decision were appealed. So you're just making a decision on the Goal 3 exception and text amendment. The Board of Commissioners may agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval and adopt the findings as presented. Alternatively, the board may deny the Goal 3 exception and comprehensive plan text amendment and adopt new findings based on evidence in the record, and the board's decision is final on the text amendment unless timely appealed to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals. That concludes my staff report, unless there are any questions for me.
Questions before we go to proponents? I had one question. I had a hard time finding if this property had water rights.
It does not have water rights.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. At this time, I'll call for proponents. If you'd please come to the podium, give me your name and address, and
Tanner Gillespie, 2003 Western Avenue, Seattle, Washington.
Wait for a second. Oh, so they have it. Should, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
I know.
Yeah, just say.
You'd have to probably download it, but
Excuse me. I'll say it.
No. We need your name too and address.
Good morning. I'm Elaine Albridge. I'm with Davis Wright Tremaine at 560 Southwest 10 Suite 700, Portland 97201.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This works now. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tanner Gillespie. I'm with One Energy Renewables. I'm Associate Director on the development team. And today I have Billy Aldrich here from Davis Wright Tremaine as well. We're going to present on Fourmile project, request for a Goal 3 exception. Today we're just going to go over a quick agenda, kind of give you an overview of what the project is, what the request is. So quick introduction of our company, project overview, and itself. We do have questions or time for questions at the end, but if you guys have questions during the presentation, feel free just to stop and ask away. A little bit about our company, One Energy Renewables. We're a Washington-based independent developer of energy projects. We have offices based out of Seattle, where our headquarters is, as well as Portland, Oregon, Boulder, Colorado, Madison, Wisconsin, as well as Virginia. We're established in 2009 out of Seattle and working in the Northwest for about 4.5 years, primarily Oregon and Washington. We have about 130 employees right now, and we're also a public benefit corporation. Our projects are inclusive of everything from community solar projects, distributed generation projects, which are smaller, and then also utility scale projects, which is what we're presenting today on with the Fourmile Solar. We've developed so far over 1 gigawatt of projects that are in operations today. So 1,000 megawatts is 1 gigawatt. Our team on this project is myself and so on the development team here today. So before I jump into things, I just want to give you some background on kind of a siting approach. This is more through the lens of the general industry, as well as how our company reviews general siting standards and approaches for how we site our projects, specifically solar projects like Fourmile Solar. So the three main buckets that we look at are, it starts with existing infrastructure. That means transmission lines, distribution lines, and substations. And that's where we actually connect our projects to the grid and distribute that power. That first takes a look at, okay, what size is the line? Can we fit a certain size project on that line? And not only is that existing already on the ground, but does it have capacity for that energy to actually get produced and transmitted? After we identify the existing infrastructure, whether substations or transmission lines, then we move towards selecting more of a suitable site. So a suitable site would be something that's flat, maybe south facing, doesn't have already development on it, such as residences or buildings, or something that may limit our ability to build on it. Resources, wetlands, wildlife, cultural resources that may impact it. And then once we identify the suitable sites within that area of the infrastructure, then we look towards, okay, let's go engage the landowners. Typically, this is done by a mailing campaign, door knocking, cold calling, and we start reaching out. So we may start with 10 or 15 or 20 sites, and that gets narrowed down to 1 or 2 people that may be interested in working with us. These sites are typically sited and have a lifespan of 30 to 40 years, so it's a long-term commitment, and it takes a lot to get a willing landowner partner to be willing to work with us for a long term. So that's just to give you kind of a perspective of how we site the projects. So jumping into the project details, Fourmile Solar, I have a map here and figure. The biggest thing I want to point out is that the Fourmile Solar project is located in the blue color on the map, on the figure. That's within Umatilla County. It's on the very kind of northwestern boundary. It actually sits directly on that county line between Morrow and Umatilla County. Directly west of it is another project in Morrow County, as well as Umatilla Oregon's Oregon Trail Substation. That project is already permitted in Morrow County. Transmission line getting built up to that Umatilla Electric Cooperative Substation. That's in Morrow County, and Fourmile is directly adjacent to that in Umatilla County. So all encompassed within Umatilla County there. We can jump to the next slide, please. So a little bit about how we define our areas within the application itself to give a better understanding of what we mean by micrositing. So the project tract is identified in the figure as the white polygons. Those are the parcels, all owned by the same landowner. That's about 1,622 acres in total in Umatilla County. And then our project area extent is defined as the red area in the figure. That's 626 acres. That encompasses portions of those 2 parcels in the very northern edge of the parcels. And within that, that's actually the micrositing boundary itself. And then the project area is only up to 450 acres. So what we're saying is the final permanent footprint of the project will be up to 450 acres within that 626 acres. What that allows us to do is it allows us to continue doing engineering studies, consultations with landowners, agencies, making sure that we can, have room for access. We can have room to limit impacts to soils or anything like that that may need further design work. And that will be included in a final layout and design once we go for building permits. So right now we've submitted preliminary layouts and whatnot, and it'll be up to 450 acres. A little bit more on site selection. So really what we're looking at is we've looked at the entire county. So we've conducted an alternatives analysis, looks at many of those different factors I talked about earlier, like willing landowners, suitable site, meaning flat, limited resources to impact, as well as existing infrastructure, which we rely upon for these projects, and also high solar energy resource, which most of Eastern Oregon is. If you have good solar resource with not a lot of trees or power lines or buildings that have shading impacts, you have a good solar resource. And then the biggest thing that I've talked about multiple times already is just the proximity to existing infrastructure with available capacity. In this case, it's flat, unirrigated land that we're setting on. As I already mentioned too, there's no impacts on this site to high-value habitat, no impacts to irrigated soils, no impacts to wetlands or floodplains on the site, and there's minimal impacts to soils overall. There's not a lot of concrete foundations included in photovoltaic solar facilities. And we also plan to continue with the landowner continues to farming activities around the project and on the additional land. Landowner does already cultivate over 12,000 acres of land between the two counties that they own. So just want to point out, the scale of things as well. We jump to the next slide, please. I do want to share a little bit more about soils. So this is within that project area extent boundary I'm showing. So that's the 626 acres. So we wouldn't build across the entire polygon here. It'll be 450 acres within this. So soil characteristics include there's no prime, unique, class 1 or 2 soils in that project area extent. There's also no soils within the area that are under a water use permit, an irrigation district, or an improvement district. And there's limited American viticultural areas, which is a definition under high value farmland under Oregon statutes. Those are shown in the figure as purple, and that's defined on basically the definition of that is slope, aspect, elevation, and that is defined under the NRCS and AVA definitions of where you are in the state.
Can I ask a question right there?
Sure.
Okay. So you have limited American viticulture area, so that is designated an AVA?
Correct. AVA is the type of high-value farmland. There's multiple high-value farmland definitions under the state statutes, and American viticulture areas is one of those definitions.
Right.
It's in the Columbia Valley AVA, the larger mapped AVA of the region.
So this area has been designated as that?
Yes.
AVA.
Based on the definition of its elevation, its slope, and aspect of the land.
Okay. You realize that if you put a grapevine there and it's an AVA, the further down it goes to get the nutrients it needs, the crappier the soil, the better the wine. And so I just wanted to point that out. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, it's the truth. It's called terroir, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
The last thing I just wanted to point out too is that the majority of the soils they're comprised of class 3 and 4 soils, so no class 1 or 2, just the AVA and class 3 and 4. Next slide is going to just identify the site access. So the site access is a private farm road. It's south of the project area and it intersects with Highway 207. The actual intersection of that private road and Oregon 207 or Highway 207 is in Morrow County. So our transportation route actually comes off Interstate 84 in Umatilla County, but it stays on Oregon 207, which is ODOT jurisdiction, and it's located in the right-hand figure there in blue. We will come down Oregon 207, and then it crosses into Morrow County on the highway, and then we would turn off that highway off the public highway onto the private farm road, and it's circled in red, the intersection there. And then the private farm road is depicted in yellow there, and that's just the gravel road that goes up onto our landowner's land, and then up to the project area itself. And we can jump to the next slide. I did want to share some more details about this. So, location in Umatilla County, it's about 11 miles southwest of Echo, Oregon, right on that Umatilla County border. The landowners are Tim and Shannon Rust and Clarkston Development Company. Our site control is a long-term land lease agreement, and our site control document was signed in 2023. So we've been working on this for quite some time with landowners and just doing development efforts and surveys across the site. The zoning is exclusive farm use. It's cultivated dryland crops with agricultural operations. And our interconnection is with Umatilla Electric Cooperative as well as Bonneville Power Administration. The system size is 90 megawatt AC with optional battery storage, and it's up to 450 acres, so it wouldn't exceed that 450 acres. The system type is what we call single axis tracking. All that means is it's a ground mounted system and it tracks the sun east to west throughout the day. And that's pretty standard in the industry today. It just optimizes the amount of efficiency and production you get rather than a fixed tilt system, which doesn't have any moving parts basically. The projected annual output from this size project would be about 140,000 megawatt hours. That would be the equivalent of about 12,000 average American homes. And then our estimated online date when it would start producing power is the third quarter of 2028 is our current estimated timeline. And that's highly dependent upon utilities doing their upgrades on their systems, both Umatilla Electric Cooperative as well as BPA, and then our construction timing as well lining up with that. That's the current date. And then I just want to share a little bit more information real quickly here on the actual components. Not sure how familiar everyone is with this, but to give a quick review, you have our panels on a single axis tracking system. It goes on a racking system that sits on top of piles. Those piles are driven directly into the ground, typically with no concrete foundations. And then the panels themselves typically have anti-reflective coating, which help absorb the sunlight and reduce glare. The more sunlight you can actually absorb is the more energy production. Any glare is just loss of energy, basically. We can jump to the next slide. And then the inverters are just converting that solar energy into electricity that the grid can use. Additionally to that, there's interconnection infrastructure, so a substation, which includes a main step-up transformer. This just steps up the voltage, which connects into the utility grid itself. Additionally, in that interconnection infrastructure, you have like a controls house, and that controls house has communication and comms equipment from the utility side, so they can regulate and monitor the actual facility itself. If there's an issue there, they can remotely monitor it and disconnect it from the grid if there's an issue on the grid side or the project side, and it's all regulated. Jumping on to the next slide here, just a quick overview of what a battery storage system looks like. We are incorporating an optionality for battery storage. These are changing in the industry and becoming more and more because they allow for higher capacity use. So instead of getting energy generation just during daylight hours, it allows you to offset that generation towards evening hours where you get higher uses when people get home from work. Typically, it's a containerized system like you see here, and it would all have its own fire suppression systems fully encapsulated within that system. You can jump to the next slide. Last thing on project components here is just the fencing we typically use. It's welded wire mesh fencing, typically blends in with the agricultural kind of landscape. It's a security fence to make sure people aren't coming into a electric facility. And the fence height and gates are all constructed and designed in a way where it allows for meets the county standards as well as standards for emergency services and access in case there is an emergency. And then we also will have internal roads, which are typically just gravel roads, and that allows for maintenance for the site and access as well as fire vehicle turnarounds for the fire department or any other emergency access that may be needed. Those roads are about 20 feet wide, and that's really the only gravel on the entire site are those roads. And so we try to minimize that because it adds up in cost dramatically on the amount of gravel you put down. So those are just going to be the 20-foot access roads. The next slide here, I just want to give a quick overview of what we've done these last 3 years since we signed site control. So we've conducted a phase 1 environmental site assessment. We've done land surveys, which include ALTA surveys, LiDAR surveys, which give us topographical maps. We've also done preliminary geotechnical surveys of soils, ensuring how deep do we need to drive the piles into the ground. We've done wetland studies, which concluded that there's no wetlands on site. We also conducted wildlife and habitat surveys. There's no critical habitat on site. It's considered actually a category 6 under the state standards because it's all active agricultural fields when driving deep. And then cultural surveys were also conducted in partnership with tribal parties. We've also conducted the soils analysis, which I dove into a little bit earlier. And then we also conducted a glare analysis, looked at all nearby potential residences, any kind of structures that could have visual impacts, and that came back with no glare impacts. We also conducted analysis, which looks at any kind of flight paths that may have any impacts to them, as well as consultations with the Department of Defense because the local boardman bombing range and military training routes in the area, that's standard practice that we do, and that's been completed. And we've also had consultations with ODOT regarding Oregon 207 and that access easement that we secured with the private landowner off the Oregon 207. And then lastly, interconnection, which is our longest process. That's actually been completed to date, and we've signed our interconnection agreements with Umatilla Electric Cooperative. So all studies have been completed. The project is feasible. We know what the costs are in order to get the system online and connect it. And so we've signed the agreements to lay out the construction timelines and whatnot. So another quick overview of the development timelines. Kind of like I mentioned, right now we're in that initial development permitting window. So 2023 to 2027, We conduct all our environmental surveys that we've done. We finished those interconnection studies. We've reached out to neighbors, solicited public feedback, and then obtained the local land use approvals like we're doing today. After that would come the construction period. We're estimating 9 to 18 months, depending on the schedules of the utilities as well as procurement. Oftentimes we have to procure things a year or so out to get them, here on time. And then that also includes establishing vegetation on site and preparing it for the operations period. Once we hit completion of construction, we call that mechanical completion, and then we begin the operations period where we actually start producing energy onto the grid. The site would be remotely monitored and basically limited maintenance until the site, starts getting older and you need maybe more repairs throughout the life cycle of the site. And the only majority of activities going on the ground is vegetation management, because you want to make sure your equipment's not getting overgrown or there's shading or weeds are going into the neighboring farm parcels. So just ensuring you have a nice clean site. I'll hand it off to Elaine to just go over the next couple of slides and go through the Goal 3 request.
Thanks. Thanks, Tanner. These next few slides that I'm going to talk through provide an overview of staff's recommended findings that were included in your packet, and those were based on the Planning Commission's review and recommendations from our January hearing date. We're here before you today to request the board's approval of the Goal 3 exception request to allow an exception for the up to 450 acres on arable land. As mentioned in the staff report, the Planning Commission did approve the associated conditional use permit, and that permit was approved subject to 7 precedent conditions and 21 subsequent conditions, and those are summarized on one of the last slides in this deck, but we wanted to include those here to illustrate to you that the work that the Planning Commission did in its review and adopting these conditions that require, finalization of all the different plans and then implementation of the plans, like weed control, vegetation management, decommissioning, financial assurance for decommissioning, and that level of detail. So those are things that the Planning Commission has addressed. And so for Goal 3, we really are just presenting you with the analysis required for the Goal 3 exception. It's a 4-part analysis or a 4-part test to justify the exception. And so we'll talk through those and happy to answer any questions as we go through. The first prong of the test is to demonstrate that reasons justify the exception. And the proposed findings for you are found on pages 17 through 29 of your packet. Our primary reason for justifying the goal exception is that the proposed solar facility is a rural industrial use that is locationally dependent on nearby UEC infrastructure and is co-located with shared facilities. The project is also located on a high solar resource on a large, flat, contiguous site. The secondary reason to justify the exception, collectively the 1 and 2 support the reasons justification, is that this project furthers the requirements of other goals in the county's comp plan goals and policies. And so we summarize those briefly here with Goal 5, Goal 9, and Goal 13. And there's more detailed proposed findings in your packet on this rationale. The second prong of the test is the alternatives analysis. And so this slide pulls an excerpt from our alternatives analysis that was included in the application as attachment R. First off, the way we approached this was we defined siting criteria that were the minimum siting requirements for this proposed facility to site an up to 90 megawatt facility that could interconnect to existing infrastructure with capacity. And so in order to do that, we developed 9 siting criteria. And then the 9 siting criteria were applied to possible sites all throughout the county to determine whether there was any other reasonably available sites that could satisfy the 9 siting criteria. As a result of that analysis and inventorying process, the proposed site was identified as the only reasonable location There was another site potentially possible at the depot, but it didn't meet all of the siting requirements, and so it was not considered a reasonable alternative.
If I can just add to that, basically on the figure you're seeing here, this is a depiction from the alternatives analysis itself. So it looked at the whole county, and what we did was we mapped out all the substation and transmission lines where we could actually potentially, if there was capacity, plug in. And there's a buffer on those lines of a distance. Okay, how much can we actually site a project within? Because if it's 5 miles away, it's just unrealistic to build a transmission line across, a bunch of 5 miles of farmland or something. So what we did is we looked at those buffers. Okay, where's the potential? And then what else meets the factors of, is it buildable? Does it require a goal 3 exception? And that's limited based off zoning.
The third prong of the test is the SD consequences analysis. So this requires us to look at potential adverse impacts to environmental, economic, social, and energy, and balance the analysis to demonstrate that the project will not have adverse impacts to these environmental, economic, social, and energy resources of importance to the county. And that analysis is included, a summary of the proposed findings is at 32 to 36 in your packet. Finally, we evaluated that the proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses. This also aligns with a large part of the Planning Commission's analysis that looked at, under the conditional use permit criteria, the farm impacts test. And so we performed an analysis of the surrounding lands to inventory the nature of the activities occurring on the surrounding lands, inventoried the accepted farming practices, and evaluated the potential impacts to such practices to demonstrate that the proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses. And most of the adjacent uses around within the surrounding land area is the landowner who's going to continue the agricultural operations on the remainder of the tract. Finally, we propose mitigation for the Goal 3 exception to help offset potential impacts to agricultural economy from the removing of this land from production. And we're proposing to incorporate into the vegetation and weed management plan a sheep grazing concept for vegetation management, and you'll hear from Krebs Solar Grazing later today to talk about that program. And that proposed mitigation is already captured in precedent condition 4 and subsequent condition 12 of the Planning Commission CUP approval. Any questions on the siting component of it that Tanner talked through, or the Goal 3 exception test before we move to the next section?
I've got a few.
Okay, great.
So,
Yeah.
you said that you looked on the site selection, you said you looked at all properties in Umatilla County, and you did explain why you selected this site, but where will the electricity generator go? Who's going to benefit from this?
You want to talk about, it goes to UEC and then UEC distributes, so.
I saw the UEC and BPA.
Yeah.
But is this project designed to be a carbon credit trading project, or is this for the customers the residents who live in the UEC footprint?
So we're not offsetting it with credits or anything, but right now we're in negotiations with a local public utility district to take that power. So how it works is you enter into a PPA, power purchase agreement, and so on paper you're basically delivering power on paper to that person. From an electron standpoint, it is going to hook up to Umatilla Electric Cooperative on their Oregon Trail substation, and it's going to basically spread out from there on the grid, just like path of least resistance for water. But the PPA is still being worked out with local PAs.
Okay. I asked the carbon credit because there's a solar project right here on the hill outside of Pendleton, and that was sold to a company back east for a carbon credit.
Okay.
So that was the reason for my question.
Correct. The other component of a PPA would be a bundled versus unbundled, and that is the renewable energy credit. And it depends on if whoever the utility that's purchasing the power, they may want the RECs to go with the power, or it can be unbundled where we could retain that value and we could sell the RECs on a separate market to another utility that may need the RECs to meet state mandates or whatever it may be. It just really depends on, who needs what at what time. Are we going to actually energize in 2028? And do they need the power and the RECs at that time? Or do they need it in 2032? It depends on a lot of different factors, but that's the other component of a PPA typically.
My last question is, on page 18, it was the first part of your four-prong project. It states for temporary removal of up to 450 acres of ag production. Could you define temporary on this project?
Yeah, good question. The project is obligated to be decommissioned at its end of life. And so that's anticipated to be about 30 years unless it's retrofitted. But under the terms of this conditional use permit, the operator must have a decommissioning and retirement plan in place along with a financial assurance that benefits the landowner and the county as a like an additional insured on the bond to be able to call upon the bond such that the facility will then be removed from the land and there's obligations to restore the site to its current or better conditions for the ongoing use by the landowner.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have a quick question, and I was at the Western Energy Institute meeting in Vancouver the last 2 days, so this came up on a project that actually got put on hold. Is how much water are you going to use to clean the panels?
Yeah, it's a good question. We do get that question a lot. In this area, we typically do not wash panels. Typically, you see that in desert environments like Southern California, Arizona, like Phoenix area or something because of the sand. But in this environment, we would get some type of soiling losses from a high wind event, which typically happens in this area. Typically, though, the cost to do that is extremely expensive and labor intensive. And so since those are also single axis tracking, we can put them into stow positions during the wintertime or during a rain event, and it can also help kind of remove that soiling from the panels. But we would not typically plan that in this event. If something were to happen, something crazy dust storm once every 100 years, and we just had, complete and utter disaster across the project, that may, present itself. But typically, we do not do that in this region. And if we did, it would take no chemicals. It would just typically ionize water. But all the projects that I've ever worked on, we don't typically do that unless they're down in kind of the southwest.
That's kind of weird because two of the projects here wash with water, or in Umatilla and Morrow counties wash 2 to 3 times. One of them washed 4 times 2 years ago. So, and anywhere from 8 to 32 gallons, depending on what they're washing on. So
Per panel?
Per megawatt.
Per megawatt.
Per megawatt. Yeah.
Okay.
And so.
Yeah, the only water use we're, assuming on the site is really from the, any kind of maintenance operations, if there needs to be some water on site and washing stations or something.
Sure.
We're not building any full restrooms or full offices in the trailer on site.
Right.
With the vegetation maintenance and incorporating the sheep, we'll have to probably truck in water for the sheep to actually,
Stock water.
have stock water. But that's the primary use.
Okay. So.
We're not pursuing any water rights for.
No, it's the water used because
Yes, right.
when you wash panels, that's lost water.
Yeah.
It's not captured water. So.
Okay.
I do have a question. I'm going to go back to Commissioner Schaefer's first question, and I just missed the answer. Where's the power going?
We're
You said it's going to UEC. I got that part.
Correct.
But is it going to stay local?
So
Did you get the answer? I didn't get the
There is no
answer.
answer
There
because
is
they're
no
selling
answer.
electrons. They're not selling it to a.
So
the
how-
customer is Umatilla Electric.
Okay.
So we're working with Umatilla Electric and Bonneville Power Administration because we're in the Transmission Balancing Authority of EPA, UEC is.
Okay.
And so we'll connect directly to the Oregon Trail substation, which is owned and operated by Umatilla Electric Cooperative. Once it's physically on there, the electrons go onto their system.
Okay.
A power purchase agreement is basically a paper trail delivering the power on a contractual basis.
Right.
And so we're still in negotiations with PUDs to, sell that power and negotiate what the terms of that, when they need it, how much power do they need. They can always negotiate a portion of it or all of it, and the terms can always be different on 10, 20, 30 years out. And so it depends upon that as well.
Okay. No. That's new news to me. I'm way over my skis on this one. But thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, the last slide, It's just really operations and maintenance, just give you some information on that. So like we kind of mentioned, typically our facilities are 30 to 40 years, so about 35 years in total. Unless we retrofit it, maybe there's a new technology, maybe there's more efficient panels, maybe there's a whole nother energy use that comes up in 30 years from now we don't know about. So that's a typical lifespan is 30 to 35 years. And then as the maintenance side of things, it's remotely monitored. Like I said, there's no on-site full-time staff. Really, it's all about vegetation maintenance, making sure that there's no weeds, making sure if we're going to run sheep on the site, people are out there during that season when we're grazing the site actively. So we have incorporated into permit application our letter of intent with Krebs Solar Grazing LLC. So he can speak more to that operations right after this. And I do want to point out the decommissioning side of things again, to address the other questions. We have submitted a preliminary decommissioning plan. It basically includes, we'll post financial assurance for 100% of that estimated decommissioning cost prior to construction starting. And it actually gets updated every 5 years to make sure it's accurate based on the current labor costs, whatever the cost may adjust to.
Who's the manufacturer of your panels?
Currently, right now, it's dependent on where we can get the panels, and that
You haven't
changes.
purchased the panels yet.
This year, we have purchased the majority of these panels from First Solar, which is a domestic manufacturer. And so that's what we're planning on using. But those things can also shift if there's other products that need to go online. But right now, we have allocated all those First Solar panels to this project.
Thank you guys very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Before we go to additional proponents, we are going to take a 5-minute break, so we're on recess.
Obviously, that was good. I'm working for you. Yeah. Do you remember this meeting? Or did you Oh, yeah. How was that?
It was fine. It's, sometimes it's easier to study. It was beautiful, honestly. I like the sun. Sun was like coming up. Yeah. An easy drive.
It can be rough sometimes driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, we didn't. We were.
I got my own.
How's your spring been?
Dude,
Good. Yeah. It's a normally warm right now. So it's nice.
Like for what was going to be expected to come out here for a few days, for a couple days for.
These are the kind of meetings you get to go to.
And
Not too many.
Yeah. And then next week is like
Right,
six.
not too bright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
I see.
My
Not too many.
parents and sister
Oh, but I've been.
family, they were supposed to go to Hawaii last week.
Uh-huh.
And
Most
all
of
the
these
flying
ones,
there.
I remember Illinois.
So they were just like, oh, we're just
And it's
not gonna do that now. They ended up going to the coast. And it's like, it's supposed to be warmer than here. And
Right. Yeah. That's a bummer.
Yeah,
I know, I grew up in Oregon, and I just remember as a kid, like, spring breaks. We're like,
No, just.
you did go to the coast, I went to the coast. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it could be sunny, but not usually.
I have the
Yeah. Yeah, some of
Oh, yeah.
And they're like totally falling out.
Yeah.
it.
What's going on? Yeah, they have really bad flooding. Oh.
I haven't seen snow coming through here, I guess.
Really? Oh, they live there?
You grew up there, right? Yeah. Did it hit all islands?
For them to see.
Part of the others?
He kept turning and looking that way and you couldn't hear him. They don't have to turn around now, they can watch that one.
Would be nice.
I don't know who turned it around, but I just turned it back.
You're gonna want to enter this into the record.
Okay.
Exhibit 5.
But that's when we come back.
Yes, at the end.
15?
Yeah, I can remind you that.
Okay.
I had to sit down and one of this, because you couldn't hear people in the back when they were talking.
I believe that.
I
I can't hear them.
They're expensive to get because it's very specialized washer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Microphone's right up here.
Yeah.
It's a lot heavier.
So I came up, since you had a recess, I came up and tweaked the TV back.
Thank you, Dave.
Did you know that we were tracking our production? Snow, it does, the soil does build up quite a bit, so you get some losses. It's all. Generally,
Yeah.
it's pretty dry. So, now what that dust will. Is your rain settle. Well, the other thing about summer, and I didn't realize. After we started, July was one of the cleanest months.
Good.
So, I mean, if you need a little wind, blow them off. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not rain,
During
but, yeah. But, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
we usually not with water use, most people sit in, but that's a little backpacks on a sheet with water in it. Spray. One way is to take this out.
Everybody back? All right. Let's, we need Kelsey.
Probably ought to get Kelsey.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Wait for our master. Right back.
These messages.
Okay.
All right then. Bring this public hearing back to order and resume with proponents. Come on up.
Good morning. My name is Cameron Krebs, spelled Cameron, Krebs, Krebs. Address is 68171 Coonsey Lane, Boardman, Oregon. Thank you guys today for taking the time to hear this. Thank you for your service to Umatilla County. My company is called Krebs Solar Grazing. Krebs Solar Grazing started as we saw utility scale move into the Columbia Basin the last few years. I'm here today to tell you that it is possible to utilize sheep as a vegetation control means on large-scale utility farms like the proposed Fourmile site. We currently treat over around 5,000 acres of utility-scale solar panels throughout the Columbia Basin. We're long-time members of the community, although live in Morrow County. The sheep spend a significant amount of time, almost 6 months a year, in Umatilla County currently, and would continue to increase that activities as if we were to progress forward with some of the utility scale solar developments that's being proposed. The other component that's interesting, we have a long-term relationship with Pendleton Woolen Mills. So as we sit in the shadow of the historical woolen mills, our byproducts, agricultural farm gate products, like the wool shirt I'm wearing today, goes to Pendleton Woolen Mills. This year's wool crop would have produced north of 30,000 men's shirts, which is where the wool goes into. It goes into their iconic line of board shirts and is marketed out through that proponent. Agriculture is still possible under the panels. There is photosynthesis that is occurring, and we can use the power of the sheep to convert that photosynthetic activity in the plants into food and fiber and bring that right back to the American consumer. And continue to patron the agricultural resources, although in a slightly different manner, from dryland wheat into animal agricultural production, but still significant here throughout Umatilla County. For example, D&B Farm Supply and I are pretty good friends when it comes to various products on last minute notice. And continue to stimulate into our rural sectors. Just like we need trucks to move grain, we have a whole need for care to the sheep. So I look at it as somewhat of a retooling of the purpose, but nonetheless, the opportunity to continue to use this land to provide resources to the American consumer, to our constituents here in these counties, is viable. And I come forth today to offer my support as presented in the earlier presentation. I'd be happy to field any questions you might have on utility scale solar vegetation needs with sheep. And again, thank you guys for your service to Umatilla County.
Comments or questions?
I do have a question.
Okay.
So do you put a sheep herder out there?
Currently, our model is to utilize a shepherd. The ewes, after they finish the solar site, will all get moved to federal allotments up on the Blue Mountains or in the Ochocos. Currently in our current model. So it's high intensity rotational grazing in the spring when we have active plant growth. We want to reduce that vegetation down to a minimum height. And then as we move into the long, hot, dry summer, we want that to be short vegetation so the site has high resilience. If there was to be a fire that was to move through the site, we don't want any equipment damage. So we want to harvest that carbon, convert that into food and fiber. We want to armor the soil with a healthy vegetation population so we get healthy infiltration of the precious rainwater we do have. We're going to reduce wind erosion by having that healthy soil cover. And then a variety of small ruminants or small mammals and insects will obviously occupy that small residual that's left underneath these solar panels. So that's the model that we use now on the utility sites that we treat. And we continue to have extraordinary success in all three of those check boxes when we go in there with an active grazing plan. So back to tie it all together, it's really hard to control sheep with temporary electric fence in the spring because our soil is arid, dry, and we lack the connectivity to ground out electric fence. So the shock isn't quite enough. Also, the baby lambs are really little, so the type of fence you have to build is much more cumbersome. We use the shepherd to manage that rotational program so we can zone target each block of the solar farm or quadrant. If for example, this one's a square, so northwest, northeast, southwest, southwest. And we're going to meet the vegetative goal that we've established with the client. And that meets the vegetative components of the CUP permit that may be put forth by your county weed masters or other issues as we move through the process. And ultimately, armor the soil, collect the water, keep the soil where it belongs.
So how many sheep do you have out there on a project like this?
It's a great question. We have a formula that we use to calculate how many sheep we might need for a specific project. This one, if you combine the two sides, the 450 with the permitted side in Morrow County, which is about 650. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. I'm guessing we'll probably have one band of sheep there for some duration. What we want to do is all timing. We also have other clients. This is not if we do engage, this is not my only client. So we may have mobilization as we see variations in vegetation or isolated rainfall events or soil types or heat units. It's really back to, there's quite a bit of agronomy that's going in, just like we look at our high intense irrigated farmland, like we're watching heat units, we're watching soil temps, we're like monitoring that vegetation where we're looking for these abnormal rain events and making sure we keep that vegetation in a really sustainable model, not just for our ecosystem, but also for the functionality of the panels.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's the possibility of the sheep climbing up on the panels if they're in the horizontal position?
Highly, 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 highly unlikely. One of the reasons that sheep are used in solar panels is versus goats is they don't jump. So if you put a panel at what they call solar noon, so it's flat, there's a high probability that the curiosity of the goat would try to jump on the panel. Sheep are not that athletic and not that aggressive. So they tend to find the shade a much better place to enjoy those warm April and May days or early June as we finish off a grazing site. One of the other interesting facts is that sheep are not exploratory nibblers. So goat, which may have more of a custom to maybe check out the wires or the cabling in the solar farms, sheep typically do not find themselves, I want to see what that tastes like. They just don't really go out to do that. I do appreciate, obviously, the sheep in the room here today, and with Pendleton's heritage and this long cultural heritage, it's really nice to see that we don't lose that. Yes, it is a transitional change for our communities, but there is still agriculture that can happen here, and I know it because we've been doing it.
Thank you.
Cameron, I think you did an excellent job presenting today. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, guys.
Great job.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll call for opponents. Oh, additional proponents, sure. Come on up.
In the last. I'm Tim Rust, 77252.
That's why we do that on purpose.
Yeah. Well, I've been known to break a few things. I'm a farmer, so. So a little history of the farm. My wife's family came here in 1979. My wife and I brought our family in 86, and we've been farming about 10,000 acres each year. I have a daughter and her family live on the farm, so the fourth generation is now there. And most of the time, the boys seem like they want to keep up the farming tradition. Sometimes it's 11 years old. So there were a few things. Well, for one, as you can imagine, we got plenty of opportunities to go solar as the Boardman line came in. A lot of them wanted 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 acres, and although it would have been a nice monetary thing, we just felt like, we're farmers. And then, so we just kind of put it off to the side, and then One Energy came kind of a little desperate. The neighbors to the north had a problem, and so we said, the acre-wise is okay. We can live with that. And as you can imagine, 40 bushel wheat country is what ours is. And so we can, make a little bit more money with the solar. Although my son-in-law is complaining a little bit that I'm taking acres away. So, but they'll be okay. But there were a few things that we were really concerned about: weeds, fire suppression, and decommissioning to put it back to where it was going to be farmable again. Maybe vineyard. I didn't think about vineyard, I guess. So, but those were covered in previously. So we feel good about that. So I guess basically that's it. For sure, I'm a proponent. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Russ. Thank you very much. Other proponents before we move on to opponents? Any opponents? Seeing none. Call Call from public agencies. Any public agencies here or online with comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. No rebuttals. Call for request for continuance. To keep the record open. None. This time I'll close the hearing. Do we need to bring into
Yes.
evidence or into documents?
Yes.
Is this the only one?
Ask that you enter the applicant's PowerPoint as Exhibit 5. That's the only one.
PowerPoint. Entertain a motion to enter applicant's PowerPoint presentation marked exhibit number 5 into testimony.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Close the hearing. Any deliberations? Okay. This time we came out of the hearing back into our regular Board of Commissioners meeting. Entertain a motion to adopt the findings.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to adopt the findings. The only comment I had, it was a great presentation, both by the professionals and by Cameron. You did a great job, Mr. Rust. It was great to hear from you. At this time, take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. A lot of work went into that. And staff. I'd like to thank staff for all the work that you guys put into this document. We're not there yet, but we're almost halfway.
I brought my copy digitally because I knew you two had the paper copy. I was afraid it might collapse the table if all three of us had it.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item on the agenda is the BMCC agreement. We talked about
To the
this.
planning commission.
Oh, planning commission. The new planning commission. Go ahead, Meg.
Thank you, Commissioners. Again, Megan Dokchevsky, Planning Division Manager. Our Planning Commission currently has 2 vacancies. We received an application from a Mr. Andrew Brown of the Milton Freewater area, and myself and the liaison commissioner for the department met with Mr. Brown, and so I am asking that he be appointed to the Planning Commission effective immediately with his term ending December 31st, 2029.
I'd move to adopt order BCC 2026-012.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
you. Next item on the agenda is BMCC, letter that we had a discussion about at our last meeting and has now been formalized by Doug and Mark. So
yes, it basically confirms that the scope of the work of the agreement with Blue Mountain would be expanded to allow them to go into high schools under the same scope of translation.
I move to approve the addendum agreement and authorize chair to sign.
Second.
been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is the PATH contract.
This is for, coming back before the board, it's part of the PATH Project CDBG grant scope of work. The original one did not include prevailing wage in the quote, and so this does update it to $25,210, still by the same contractor and still paid with the same funds.
I move approval.
Got a motion and
Second.
a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is the IRZ contract.
This is a proposed agreement with IRZ Consultants. This is for engineering services. This is part of the Central Water Line project. That part of the original construction included design and construction over the West Extension District Canal. After the construction, it was determined that it was not adequate to meet the needs of the users, and so it has to be redesigned, and that's what this contract is for.
I move to approve the contract with IRZ for engineering services, the amount of $25,000.
I have to ask, how come it wasn't, it didn't meet the needs?
They reviewed the design, both the Bureau of Rec and the district, and afterwards they found out some of their equipment would not meet the slope.
Second.
Been a motion, second, quick comment. We have the discussion on the funding, and that's coming from the water pipeline project.
That is correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item is health purchase. You lost the rest of your crew. No. Holy cow.
I saw you guys playing rock, paper, scissors. He was gonna stay on the end.
Morgan Linder, Community Health Supervisor with Umatilla County Public Health. We are seeking to pay for the construction of garden boxes with the community garden in Pendleton. We previously had approved a contractor who's no longer able to complete the project, so received an additional bid. You'll cover the $8,361 allotted in the EOCCO share grant that we received, with OSU Master Gardeners covering the rest of the expense reflected in the bid.
Quick question I have. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Timmons.
No, go ahead.
I see, as I drive by there as often as I can, that it is coming together. Is the water actually in now?
Yes, so the spigots are in, everything's set up, and the city will get all of that taken care of.
You have to have seeds in the ground shortly. 73.
Yes, so we're trying to move forward as quickly as we can.
Go ahead.
So are they all garden boxes?
Yes.
Okay, everything's planted in a garden box.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Good question.
Entertain a motion.
Okay, I move to authorize $8,361 payment for materials and labor for construction of garden boxes for the community garden.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Thank you very much. Thanks for waiting, too. Long meeting. Land use hearing. No, we did that. Position reclassification.
Yeah, let's not go backwards.
You like to handle that, Robert or Doug?
I can, I
Or
wasn't sure.
Jennifer?
Jennifer wanted
Hi, Commissioners. Jennifer, yes, I was going to pull up the agenda item real quick. Sorry, I had closed it down. Request before you, the Commissioners, this year, as we are in our third year of implementing our process to consider reclassifications and new positions for all Umatilla County departments. We put forth a recommendation for you, which will then go to the Budget Committee for approval. That's totaled $756,000 for the upcoming 26-27 year. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I move to authorize the inclusion of the proposed budget for the 26-27 potential position impacts of up to $756,000 to the extent possible and still maintain a balanced budget.
Second.
My comment is that I appreciate finance, their ability to build these in. I don't, looking into a very, very, very murky crystal ball, I don't see us being able to maintain this. I think that we're in pretty good shape for this and this package. But I think finance has done a great job of explaining to us where we are, the challenges that are ahead, and some of the outlooks aren't as rosy as they have been in the past. And so
It's almost like you've already read my budget message for this coming season.
So I always get nervous at up to, so I'd love it to be lower than, but an up to is great. Robert, did you want to add anything before we vote?
Robert Paul, CFO. As I've mentioned before, I think balancing the budget this year was more difficult than in past years. I realize in participating with this process that we were careful in not including many things that were requested, but I do think it's important to avoid expansion for several years.
That's great advice. Thank you, Robert. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Pinky update.
Okay, this matter is before the board to update the format of the pinky. And the proposed pinky is attached to the pinky.
And we have that on record.
And so it basically streamlines the format and then also adds some new additional information that is needed for it to make a decision.
I move to approve the new pinky format.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. I'd like to say thanks to Nick for his work on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. You're not gonna believe this, but we're on our last item.
Good, we almost had to take a lunch break. To
I
read
know.
The last item is the weed department is again requesting a contract for goat grazing. They started this last year. This is two different parcels from last year. They do have adequate funding to pay for the proposal, and so a request for proposal was issued. One proposal was received from the same firm that did last year, and the amount of the bid was $18,350. And it's about 210 acres grazing.
Great job last year.
No, I was just gonna say the same thing. It worked out pretty good last year.
I move to approve contract with Jerry Croc for goat grazing in the amount of $18,350.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Closing comments. Commissioner Timmons.
Well, I do have a comment. This is kind of a grim one. But I'd like to say publicly that we lost a really, really great fellow this week, Vern Rodegaro. And Vern sat on all sorts of committees, and we all knew him well. And the one thing about Vern Rodegaro, he didn't even have skin in the game, and he still showed up. He was instrumental in not only the water there on the north end of the county, but also I for many hours peeled potatoes with Vern Rodegaro during different fundraisers, and lost him very, very quickly. And so I just wanted to say I'm sorry to see a great person like that go, but I wanted to bring that out publicly, that he will certainly be missed.
Absolutely. Well said.
Well said. Community asset, that's for sure.
Community asset.
I've got nothing.
I have nothing today, so let's end this thing. Meeting adjourned.